Chloe Price is the chaos you can see coming, but Max Caulfield is the chaos you don't notice until it's already happening. One explodes, the other implodes. And if you really start paying attention to Max's behavior across Life is Strange and Double Exposure, she doesn't confront her problems. She rewinds them. Hey guys, I'm Captain Lauren and I've been a Life is Strange fan since 2015. Or at least that's when my hyperfixation started. I tend to be an obsessive overthinker when it comes to characters, lore, and hidden details. And in this series, we're diving deep into the world of Life is Strange. Now, if you haven't watched my Chloe Price deep dive yet, you should go do that because everything that we're talking about here is going to directly connect to that. Because this is part 2. Let's get into the deep dive. Max Caulfield is like an onion. She has layers. Now, as you guys know, all the characters in the Life is Strange franchise are very complex, but Max has to be the most quietly complicated character in the entire series. Because when you first meet Max, she seems simple. She's shy, she's anxious, she's socially awkward, but the more you watch how she behaves across multiple games, you can see that there's a lot going on below the surface. And it actually makes a lot of sense when you think about who Max is as a person. She's a photographer. And this really matters because Max is somebody who prefers to observe her world rather than participate in it. And a camera lets her do exactly that. It gives her distance, it gives her control. It lets her be near life without fully immersing herself into it. Max doesn't just use a camera because she likes art. The camera serves as a buffer. A photo freezes a moment in time, keeps it at a safe distance, and then lets her study it without ever having to emotionally engage in it. It lets her watch the world without being present in it. And it's a really interesting concept considering she is a person who can go back to certain moments and then change them entirely. Because even though Max wants to control time, she emotionally just wants to stand behind the lens and let it all happen in front of her. But she also uses her art as a way to communicate with people because she cannot do that with her words. Showing people how she sees the world through her lens, how she can express those words through the art. But on top of that, Max is an avoidant person. She avoids conflict, she avoids emotions, and sometimes she avoids people altogether, which is exactly why she ghosts Chloe for 5 years. So let's get into layer number 1. Max the people pleaser. Max is incredibly altruistic. She spends half the game helping everyone else, saving Kate on the roof, helping Chloe chase down Rachel, helping classmates with their drama, while her own mental state is quietly collapsing. She basically helps half of Blackwell Academy, and then later in Double Exposure, she's doing the exact same thing at Caledon University. She's basically Super Max. For those of you who have played the Farewell episode, you get that Easter egg. Max is the type of person who will drop everything to help someone else, which sounds like a great personality trait, but people-pleasing has a dark side. People pleasers often take care of everyone else's emotions, while completely ignoring their own. And Max does this constantly. You hear it in her inner dialogue. Max is always judging herself. Why did I say that? That sounded stupid. I should have said something else. She constantly beats herself up internally, which lines up with what psychologists often associate with avoidant personalities. People with these types of personalities typically have low self-esteem paired with high empathy. Sound familiar? Max cares deeply about other people, always trying to help, always trying to be there whenever she can, but she struggles to even believe that she deserves that same care back. So she casts herself to the wayside at the expense of everyone else, because she never feels like she's important enough. And guilt becomes a huge part of Max's identity because of this. She constantly replays moments in her head, thinking about what she could have said differently, what she should have done differently, how she could have prevented something from happening. That's already how her brain works before the powers even show up, which makes her rewind ability both perfect and incredibly dangerous for someone wired like Max. And here's what's kind of ironic about all of it. Max isn't just naturally outgoing. She's awkward, she's shy, she struggles with basic conversations, yet somehow, the quietest person in the room keeps becoming the person that everyone depends on. Helping people becomes one of the only ways Max feels like she has value. If she can save someone, fix something, or be there for someone in a crisis, then she has purpose, then she matters. But the flip side of that is brutal. When something goes wrong, Max automatically assumes it's her fault. The problem is, when your whole identity is built around fixing everyone else, the moment you fail to save someone, it becomes unbearable. And Max carries that kind of self-blame everywhere she goes. You can even see this contradiction play out in the Everyday Heroes contest. Max wants the recognition. She wants to believe that her photography matters, but at the same time, she keeps avoiding submitting her work. She's terrified of putting herself out there. Max wants to be seen, but being seen also scares the hell out of her, which is exactly why photography works for her. It lets her show people how she sees the world without having to expose herself directly. Because photography itself is part of Max's coping mechanism. A photograph captures pain, freezes it, and turns it into something you can analyze instead of feel. Max doesn't process trauma by talking about it. She processes it by framing it and turning it into art. It's safer to look at pain through a lens rather than actually sit inside of it. But that pattern, observe instead of engage, frame instead of feel, it shows up in everything Max does. Moving on to layer number 2, Max the avoidant ghost. Now, if you want the psychological explanation from somebody who totally has experience with attachment styles, avoidant personalities tend to do 3 things. They withdraw, they suppress emotions, and they avoid confrontation. Max does all 3. Instead of addressing emotional problems directly, Max shuts down. We can see this multiple times across both games. In Double Exposure, after Safi dies, people repeatedly try to check in on Max, her parents, friends, even Yasmin, Safi's grieving mother. And what does Max do? She ghosts them, or gives short responses, delayed responses, or no responses at all. Max doesn't do this because she doesn't care. She does it because she doesn't know how to deal with the emotions involved. Avoidance isn't cruelty, it's fear. And this is exactly why I need people to stop oversimplifying the Chloe situation. Because the thing that people love to debate about Max ghosting Chloe for 5 years is that it isn't some separate issue. But this is the exact same pattern playing out when she was 13 years old. Now, yes, Max was young. Yes, Max moving to Seattle was a huge life change, but that's not the whole story. Max doesn't ghost Chloe because she doesn't care. She ghosts Chloe because confrontation terrifies her, and Chloe is the most confrontational person she knows. Think about it. Chloe is loud, emotional, and demanding. Chloe wants to talk about everything, whereas Max does the opposite. Max runs from emotional conversations, and the longer she avoids them, the harder they become. Anyone who has ever ghosted someone knows this exact feeling. At first, it's just awkward. Then a week passes, then a month. Then suddenly, it feels impossible to reach out again. Max ends up getting trapped in this exact cycle. And here's what makes this so much worse. She knows it's wrong. In Life is Strange, when Max finally reunites with Chloe, she doesn't defend herself. She doesn't make excuses. She just takes it because she knows she failed Chloe. But knowing something is wrong and actually changing the behavior are 2 very different things for someone wired like Max. Because look at what happens in Double Exposure. 10 years later, Max is doing the exact same thing. Different people, same pattern. Amanda reaches out, Max delays. Her parents reach out, Max gives 1-word answers. Even Amanda's romance route shows the same pattern. Max pulls back, delays, and doesn't follow through. Max hasn't addressed any of this. She hasn't confronted it. She just keeps carrying it. Different city, different people, same avoidance. That's not a character flaw. That's a pattern. And honestly, if avoidance was the worst of it, then Max probably would have been okay. Maybe she would have eventually figured it out. But then Arcadia Bay happened, Chloe happened, the dark room happened, and that didn't just reinforce Max's avoidance, it cemented it. Moving on to layer number 3, the perfect power for an avoidant. Now here's where the writing in Life is Strange is really ingenious for her character. Max's powers are literally perfect for her personality. Max can rewind time, which means she can say something, see how someone reacts, and if she doesn't like the outcome, undo it. Embarrassing moment, rewind. Conflict, rewind. Bad reaction, rewind. Reality itself becomes something that Max can edit until it feels safe, which is basically the dream ability for someone who struggles with confrontation. But here's the deeper thing. Max's rewind ability isn't just about controlling time. It's about refusing to accept it. Now, to some people's interpretation of the first game, it is a slow realization that you can't rewind your way out of grief, out of guilt, or trauma. trauma. At some point, the only way forward is to stop trying and change the past and start learning to live with it. Think about it this way. A lot of people end up replaying awkward conversations or awkward things that have happened to them in their heads over and over. I know I do. Max can replay them in real time. Most people imagine what they should have said differently, but Max can actually go back and say it. For someone who already struggles with confrontation, that ability becomes incredibly seductive. Why sit with the discomfort of the mistake when you can simply erase it instead of processed? But the more Max rewinds, the more she reinforces the idea that mistakes should be undone instead of processed. She doesn't learn to confront problems, she learns to edit them. And double exposure takes this even further. Now Max can literally jump between timelines, two realities, two different outcomes, two different choices. For someone who constantly worries about making the wrong decision, that power is almost addictive, even if she doesn't realize it. She tells herself that she's doing it to help others, but she's also unconsciously helping herself. And it's causing more chaos than she realizes, because Max doesn't have to face consequences. Well, until she does. And here's a detail that I think people end up sleeping on. When we first meet Max in double exposure, she hasn't used her rewind ability in years. That detail says a lot about where she's at emotionally. It doesn't necessarily mean that she's healed from Arcadia Bay. If anything, it feels more like she locked the entire chapter of her life in a box and refused to touch it. It's like leaving a wound covered but never actually cleaning it. Avoidance doesn't heal trauma, it just keeps it frozen in time. And what's even more telling is the dynamic with Chloe and Safi in double exposure. Because emotionally, Max is standing between two timelines, not just literally, but psychologically. Chloe represents everything in Max's past: the grief, the guilt, the relationship, the storm, the version of herself she left behind. Safi represents the present and the future, a new connection, a new responsibility, a new chance. Max spends the entire game standing at a crossroads, living in the shadow of the past while trying to show up for the present, and not quite doing either one fully. Max doesn't live in the present the way most people do. She lives in moments that already happened, moments that she wants to change, moments that she wishes she could rewind. She can just try again and again and again. She's still saving everyone. She just forgot to save herself. But the problem with avoidance is that it works short term, but it ends up destroying you in the long term. And we end up seeing that long-term effect over the course of 2 games. Running from problems, refusing to deal with them, it has consequences, because ultimately avoiding emotions doesn't heal them, it buries them. Moving on to layer number 4. The dark room trauma. You guys see what I did there? You know, because episode 4 in Life is Strange is called Dark Room, and that's when you discover the dark room, and then Max's 4th layer is her dark room trauma. I thought it was clever. Anyway, now here's the trauma that Max carries after the dark room. But let's rewind a little bit and talk about what actually happens to Max. See what I did there? Jefferson drugs her, he poses her, he photographs her while she's incapacitated, and the entire time he frames it as art. That's what makes the dark room so insidious. This is a man Max trusted, someone she submitted her work to, looked up to, and wanted validation from. And he looked at her and saw a subject to capture, which is even more horrifying for someone like Max because she's a photographer. Her art matters so much to her, and he's desecrating it. Back in episode 1 of Life is Strange, Jefferson tells the class, "I could frame any one of you in a dark corner and capture you in a moment of desperation." And in hindsight, that line becomes absolutely sinister. And then in the nightmare sequence of episode 5, it gets even more disturbing. A warped version of Max, her own subconscious, calls it our dark room and says it's the only place I truly feel safe and protected. Jefferson's framing of violation as intimacy has gotten so deep into Max's head that her own mind is repeating it back to her. That's not just trauma. That's psychological horror on a level that this game doesn't nearly get enough credit for. And it doesn't just stop there. Watching Chloe die again and again and again. The bathroom, the junkyard, the storm. Even if you save Chloe, Max still witnesses those deaths over and over. That kind of experience would traumatize anyone, and the games show that Max never fully processes it. The game tells you this explicitly if you pay attention. During the nightmare sequence in episode 5, if you open up Max's journal, it's not her journal anymore. The entries are warped, violent, and distorted. Her subconscious has taken over the pages, and there's a degree of self-loathing in these pages that the game never says out loud. It just shows you. It's almost like Max's inner world has become her own personal hell. And because Max's nightmare is a manifestation of her subconscious fears and guilt, this is how Max sees herself now. Not as a photographer, not as an artist, but as a subject. Something to be captured and framed. And this is where it all ties together. Think about what Jefferson did. He took away Max's control, autonomy, and agency. She was drugged, posed, and she was photographed. She couldn't fight back. She couldn't say no. She couldn't even move. Now think about what Max's rewind power gives her. The ability to undo, to take back a moment, to say, no, that's not how it goes. Let me try again. Her power is literally about reclaiming control over time. That's not a coincidence. That's a trauma response baked into the game's core mechanic. But here's the cruel irony of it all. The same power that lets her take back control also lets her avoid everything. She can rewind a conversation she doesn't like. She can undo a confrontation before it gets uncomfortable. The very thing that protects her is also the thing that prevents her from actually ever sitting with her emotions. Her shield ends up being her cage. Even 10 years later in Double Exposure, Max is still haunted by those memories. In Chapter 5, Max doesn't just remember the bathroom where Chloe was shot. She's literally transported there and relives it. And the worst part about it all, Max and Safi end up saying the same lines that Nathan and Chloe said, word for word. Different people, same script. For someone who spent an entire game rewinding moments to change outcomes, and then being forced to watch the same exact scene play out again, but with different faces and not being able to stop it, that's not a flashback. That's the universe telling Max that some things can't be rewound. And this is a textbook trauma response. Now, if you're playing in the Chloe Price Bay timeline, it gets even worse, because Max and Chloe were together for years after Arcadia Bay. They tried. They really tried. But eventually, something fractures between them, and Chloe leaves. Not gradually, not with a conversation, but with a letter in a motel room. And Max never lets it go. Her journal entries in Double Exposure are still addressed to Chloe. After all those years, she remembers every detail of that motel room, every detail of that letter, because that's what avoidant people do. They don't process. They preserve. The pain doesn't fade, it freezes, and Max carries it like a photograph she can't stop developing. Even her art reflects it. The piece that got her into Caledon, the one that's displayed at the university, it's called Walking with Ghosts. Look at that title. She's not painting landscapes. She's making art about death, about loss, and the rest of her portfolio is surrounded by tragedy. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys Max's portfolio just to prove how much tragedy is in there. That's our sweet baby right there. Now look at this diner tragedy picture. Now look at this piece of a car crash that she did, and it's also called Diptych, which is coincidentally the name of Chapter 4 in Double Exposure. And look at this other piece referencing the Two Whales Diner, but look at how cute she is when she got this photography award. But as you can see, Max's portfolio is just full of tragedy. And you can end up seeing this picture in her house in Double Exposure. And that's the thing about Max. She can observe pain, frame it beautifully, and then she can turn it into a photograph or a journal entry or a piece of art that makes other people feel something. But she can never actually sit with the feelings herself. Photography is Max's coping mechanism. A photograph captures pain and freezes it and turns it into something you can analyze instead of feel. She doesn't process trauma by talking about it. She processes it by framing it, documenting it, and turning it into art. Because it's safer to look at pain through a lens than actually live inside of it. The dark room didn't just traumatize Max, it confirmed every instinct she already had. Don't engage, don't confront, don't let anyone get close enough to hurt you. Just observe, rewind, and keep moving. But ultimately, no matter what ending you choose in the first game, Max still walks away carrying that weight. Now I'm going to do a little bit of a sidestep here and talk about Max's love for Chloe, but it's all going to tie together, so stick with me. Now here's how her relationship with Chloe plays into all of this. Max might avoid conflict, Max might struggle with communication, but Max still loves Chloe deeply. You can see it in her journal. Even if you don't romance Chloe, Max constantly writes about her. Max worries about her, and she so desperately wants to protect her. And even after their breakup, Max still carries a photo of Chloe in her wallet in double exposure, which honestly says a lot. Think about what a photo in a wallet actually is. It's something you carry with you every day, but you never have to look at it directly. It's there, it's close, but it's tucked away. And that's Max's entire approach to love. Keep it near, but never confront it. She carries Chloe the same way she carries her trauma, always present, but never processed. Because if Max were truly detached, she would have let that go, but she didn't. Now, I want to touch on what makes Max and Chloe such an interesting pair, because this is the foundation of everything in part 3. Chloe externalizes her trauma. She yells, she crashes out, she's the storm you can see coming. Max internalizes everything. She goes quiet, she withdraws, she implodes. Chloe confronts the world head on, even when it hurts. Max tries to edit the world until it stops hurting. Two completely different survival strategies, which explains why their relationship is both powerful and incredibly fragile. And that leads directly into the next deep dive, the Pricefield breakup. And in that next video, I'm going to break it all down. Because when someone with avoidant issues falls for somebody with abandonment issues, well, the result is almost inevitable. And if you also want to check out my Chloe Price deep dive, I'll link that in the description below. But overall, Max Caulfield may look calm on the surface, but underneath that quiet photographer exterior is someone who's carrying guilt, fear, trauma, and emotions that she never learned how to confront. She just keeps moving, keeps helping, keeps observing, hoping that if she stays busy enough, she won't ever have to stop and feel any of it. Like I said before, Chloe explodes, Max implodes. And sometimes the quietest characters are often carrying the loudest storms. See what I did there? Okay, that was the last one, I promise. But now I want to hear from you guys. Do you think Max is an avoidant? Do you now understand her better, seeing how she deals with things? Also, if you guys want to check out my demo of Life is Strange Reunion, I'll link that in the description below. But like I said, the breakup deep dive is next, and don't say I didn't warn you.